Grandpa's Journal, Episode 3, A Rude Awakening. It took several hours to do justice to that fabulous meal. By the time we'd finished eating, everyone agreed that a good nap was in order. My folks, being exhausted, were shown to the last available bedroom in the house. It was a nice, spacious room upstairs with an eastern exposure, providing plenty of sun and a spectacular view of the river. Christoph and I excused ourselves, and Klaus escorted us to our new quarters. About 40 paces south of the stone structure stood the carriage house. In the north end of the carriage house was a 12 by 15-foot area which had been a tack room. It was a cozy nook with an open beam ceiling and 2 small windows. This would meet our needs nicely. In one end was a small Franklin fireplace that Uncle Gus had just installed, and snugly arranged in the remaining space were 2 oak dressers, a washstand with mirror, a massive cherry chifforobe, and a set of bunk beds freshly outfitted with down pillows and flannel comforters. Most of the harness and tack had been removed, but several ancient saddles and accessories still hung from the rafters. Klaus left us to settle in, and Christoph made a mad dash for the top bunk. I stood there for a moment, scratching dried strudel from the corner of my mouth, and eventually decided I was too tired and too full to put up a respectable fight. The bottom bunk would do nicely. Within minutes, Christoph was snoring away. I slipped my shoes and trousers off and hung my shirt and jacket in the chifforobe. My jacket contained a buttermilk biscuit, which I had pocketed prior to leaving the dinner table. Force of habit, after 3 long months at sea. I set the biscuit on my dresser, sank into that luxurious goose-down pillow, and added my snore to the chorus. That evening, the rest of the family had a nice nap and then enjoyed leftovers and a leisurely visit. I missed it. I slept right through until first light the following morning, when I was awakened by the faint sound of gnawing and crunching. The sun was not yet up, but its approach had filled the eastern horizon with a milky translucence, which was spilling through our window and casting its dim light across our cold hardwood floor. It was a cool fall morning, and as my vision cleared, I could see my breath in the stillness and hear Christoph's slow, rhythmic breathing in the overhead bunk. All at once, the buttermilk biscuit on my dresser went into convulsions and spasms of violent shaking. I rubbed my eyes and stared in disbelief. It trembled spasmodically for a moment, and then, with a terrible shudder, it quivered and split into 4 pieces. I'd never seen a buttermilk biscuit in such profound distress. 3 of the pieces trembled violently for a moment, and then darted across the dresser and shot into the air like pastry possessed, disappearing into a leather saddlebag that hung from a beam over my head. The 4th piece of pastry hesitated for a moment, and then flung itself off the dresser and dashed across the floor and under my bunk. Clearly drunken behavior for a biscuit which only yesterday had been stone cold sober. I was dumbfounded. I sprang to my feet and knocked myself senseless on the edge of Christoph's bunk. Falling back on my own bunk, I sat there for several moments, fingering my knot and contemplating this remarkable biscuit and its uncharacteristic behavior. The gnawing sounds resumed and built to a fever pitch. Suddenly, the saddlebag over my head rustled violently. The flap raised ever so slightly, and several pair of beady black eyes returned my stare. My unsuspecting biscuit had fallen prey to a pack of marauding fairy-diddle. These rampaging rodents were about the size of a small rat, but they were outfitted with a flat, stubby tail and a flap of skin between each hind leg and forearm, which allowed them to glide through the air like a leaf on a blustery day. These little vandals had evidently nested in the rafters, and they'd seen our arrival as an opportunity for a raid. In the future, I'll be considerably more wary of leaving poor, defenseless biscuits unattended. And the next time I jump to a conclusion like that, you can rest assured It won't be under a bunk bed.